Oh, yeah. Trying to get the camera to work with me. First, it cut me off about the eyebrow level. That was kind of hilarious. Got that camera picture not balanced right on the top of the screen there, and it just cut me off from here up. It's like, I lost my mind. No. Oh, come on. Really, dude? It's 11 o'clock at night. Don't do that. All right. Anyway, so I'm not gonna keep trying to make the laptop and everything work together to try to cook something. It's decided it's not gonna cooperate on that score, so I'm fine with that. I did my first round of cooking episodes 2 months ago, almost 3 months ago, and that was a fun experiment. There are enough things going on in my little world here that's not something to do regularly. So I had originally planned to do something a little differently anyway. So what I'm going to try to do by the end of the week, hopefully, is have still images of some foods that I've made. I don't know. I'll try to write the recipes down and maybe see if I can get some still images of a few of them, maybe not all of them, because some of them I've already cooked and I've given them away to people. But I will try to make some new recipes, and some of the ones I've been playing around with. I mean, I made some in the past, and I made them as gifts for friends and family. Where, like, right now, it's been so hot here, it's miserable, and so cool foods are really nice to be able to do. And one of the ones that I've made has been uh, ice cream sandwiches. And so what I do with that is I make some double chocolate or sometimes triple chocolate brownie, but I take a muffin pan and I grease the cups in the muffin pan and then put a thin layer of brownie in the bottom of all of them. Bake them until they're set up brownies. Pull them out of half of them, and then I have some like mint chocolate chip ice cream that I let get soft. Scoop some of that on top of the ones that are still in the bottom of the muffin tray, and then put the other half on top, and I then pop it in the freezer to let them set up, and then you can pop them out. And part of if you do it right, if you grease the muffin pan right, and then sometimes you can put a piece of parchment paper at the bottom underneath of it, just a little disc of parchment paper, and then you bake the brownie, you loosen them all, but you only take half of them out. You put the ice cream on top of the ones in the bottom, put the brownie tops on them, you put them in the freezer, and once they've frozen, you take them out and you give them a second to start warming up. The pan will warm up while the ice cream sandwiches are still cold. And so the difference in thermal property lets them pop out more. So I've done that. And the biggest hurdle I had with that one was if you take your ice cream, if you make your own ice cream, or if you buy a mint chocolate chip ice cream, um, and you let it get soft, when it freezes in the sandwich, it's likely to be very dense ice cream, which works for me. I'm always pretty happy with it. And as a dense ice cream, it also has a tendency to be colder. It's not as fluffy and airy, so it's a little bit more like a solid chunk of frozen. And in weather like this, I think that's a good thing. You can vary how thick you do with the ice cream on it too. You do a big honking piece of ice cream in there, then it's going to feel harder to bite a piece out of. But if you do a thin layer in there, You can get whatever way you like it best, you can get it to work. So that's one of the things I was planning to do this week. I might not get it done this week. And then, because I've got, at this point, I'm not going to be able to record the making of them. And I've got an event to go to tomorrow. I might be able to make a few of these things by Saturday. But it wouldn't be on here anyway. It would be pictures I post to Tumblr with some simple guidelines on how to make them. And one of the other ones I wanted to experiment with is doing a lemon ginger Italian ice. And I'm going back and forth about whether or not to do like a fresh ginger and cook it in the syrup before I cook it up, or one of the things I think I'm probably going to end up doing instead is getting some candied ginger, a few pieces of candied ginger, and blend it in with the lemon juice and sugar that make the syrup that we work with, and then let that candied ginger substitute for some of the lemon and lemon zest, but also some of the sugar content. And then from there, the biggest trick to an Italian ice is checking on it repeatedly and stirring it so that it doesn't form a ice cube or a popsicle, but instead forms a more slushy texture. Not a slush, but a softer variety. And then, so those are the two frozen desserts that I was looking to play with tonight. Not tonight, this week. And then I did the meringues, I did the almond macaroons. So the two frozen ones. I was going to do funnel cake. I was aiming to do a maple cinnamon funnel cake. I don't think that's going to happen. Because half the fun of that is just doing the video for it. And I can't get the video stuff to work for me right now. And that's okay. I may at one point in the next few weeks or so maybe cook up a batch of maple cinnamon funnel cake, take a picture and post it over to my Tumblr. And then the other one, I have two other ones that I wanted to play with. I have an old recipe that I made when I was in high school for banana bread, not banana nut bread, but just a plain banana bread. That's sort of my unique way of doing it. And I don't have any bananas that are ready to go for banana bread yet. It's just, for whatever reason, they're not getting that dark brown peel that says how sweet the banana is getting in there. That's what you really need to get a banana bread right. And mine aren't ripe enough yet. But I may still try to do one of the other ones that I was going to do, which was a type of spice cake. Now, the original recipe is sort of like a carrot cake without the carrot. And there's another version of it that involves raisins. Not my thing. But there are a couple variants on that I've thought about playing with. And I think the one that I'm most attached to as an idea was a pear, like a dried pear spice cake. And so you get dried pear and you cut it into pieces. You mix it in with your syrup that you make with it. And it's basically a dried pear, sugar, water, spices, and like a coconut oil or a butter. I mean, I suppose you could use lard. But At any rate, what you do is you cook those up into a syrup essentially, and you mix that in with your all-purpose flour, and then you bake that as a cake. And I can't find a bundt pan here, which it is what it is at that point. And the other thing I'm struggling with is I have to try a few other places, but the stores I've been to, they have dried apricots, they have dried mango, they have dried cantaloupe, they have dried apple, cranberries, raisins. I've seen a few, some dried banana. I've seen some dried blueberries. Um, so I've seen a lot of dried fruit, but nobody seems to have thought to dry pear, which surprises me. And so I haven't found dried pear. What I'm considering potentially doing is getting a regular pear, slicing it, putting it on some parchment paper, and drying it in the oven. Or maybe just cooking it a little bit and mixing it in with the rest of the batter for the like take this that might be tricky. I might I might juice a pear, chop up dice a pear and bake a pear with a little bit of spices on it. Put the juice in with the syrup. Put the spices on the pear when I bake it. Pour the syrup into the flour, mix, toss in the chopped up pear, and then bake. That may be the best way to go, I think. That may get me what I need to get done. I might even, you know, I might even see if I can take a pear and peel the pear, cook the peels, like shred the peels or blend the peels, and cook that in with the syrup and dice up the main part of the pear. Yeah, I might do that. And I'm trying to think. You probably want about a cup to 2 cups of pear. And I think that's about one good sized pear. So I might be able to get away with just getting one pear and just going with that. I may give that a try. My other option was potentially to do a cranberry apple spice cake. And I've thought about doing just a spiced cranberry cake using a glaze, like a marmalade glaze for it. But I feel like that flavor combination is more autumn than summer. So there's some of that to play with. But that is one I definitely do want to play with. So I'll have to look into that. The banana bread I can kind of do at any time because I've done it before. And then trying to think. I had the maple cinnamon funnel cake I have not actually made yet. So I can't speak for how to work that recipe just yet. But I've made the ice cream sandwiches. I've made a lemon Italian ice. I have never made a lemon ginger. So I'm working on trying to figure that one out. And I think one of the things I have to try to figure out is there are a few different ways I can find the ginger to introduce to this, but I want to make it something that most people can find. So I don't want to get a type of candied ginger that's specific to a local store that I can find it at really easily. I was in one the other day, and they have these bags of these little cubed candied ginger. That's really cool, and that's plenty for what I need to do with it. I don't know that anybody else trying to get this recipe made would be able to find any. So, it can affect the outcome if you do stuff that way. I think the other thing I need to do is find a decent blender, because with this, I want to be able to blend the candied ginger in with the lemon juice, sugar, and water, and the lemon zest. So that should get me. I have the meringues, I have the almond macaroons, the lemon ginger, the mint brownie ice cream sandwich, the funnel cake, banana bread, and the spiced pear cake. So those were the 7 that I was going to try to achieve by this week. I'd kind of actually hoped to continue making more over time, but I'll hold off on some of that. I will see if I can post little bits here and there over on Tumblr. Like once a week, I'll post a new recipe over there. But one of the things I want to try to do is when I'm at VidCon, I want to talk to some people about what's the right method for releasing those. Because again, if I want to release them as a cookbook, I may not own the rights to them anymore if I publish them over there. So I got to figure that part out. And then so that's really the recipes I'm working on this week. I'm hoping that by the end of the week, I'll do one of the spiced cakes, at least. And then the other thing I want to talk about was last night. You probably saw how absolutely beat and worn out I was. And that was, I'm doing my exercise routine that I'm using as my base exercise routine. And part of that was a recent ramp up. The way I've scheduled this exercise routine is as a good way to go from sedentary to fit, to get a regular exercise routine of a certain level going. And part of that ramp up is doing a high intensity few days every now and then. And so what I did yesterday, by the end of yesterday, I had done 10 different body weight exercises, 200 times each. So I did 200 times 10. So I did 2,000 reps of body weight exercises in a 16-hour time frame. I was pretty sore yesterday. I finished the end of the day, and part of it is you spread it out over the whole day. And part of it was by the end of the day, I was a little sore, but I was also sick to death of stopping what I was doing on a regular basis to do a little bit more exercise every freaking 30 minutes. It was obnoxious. But I woke up this morning, I wasn't even sore. I woke up this morning and I did. Here's the thing. I woke up this morning, I wasn't even really sore. I got up. It's a slow day. It's sort of a rest day for me today. But I still have to do a certain number of reps. And so I'm doing them in split sets over the course of the day. but the number of sets I'm doing, the number per set I'm doing is less, and the number of sets I'm doing is less. And so when I got up this morning and wasn't sore, I was pretty surprised. And then I did my first round of exercises, same ones I did yesterday, but just to a lesser degree. And they were really, really easy for me. And part of this routine that I built was starting with an understanding of what's your base level of ability to do them. So instead of saying like, okay, week 1, day 1, you do 30 push-ups or something like that during the course of the day, or you do a set with 3 push-ups certain number of times a day. You don't do that. What you do is, okay, what's the max number of push-ups you can do in one go? And then you do a percentage of that each time. So that by the end of the day, you're doing way more than if you just did one set to your max ability. So say my max ability of push-ups might be 10 push-ups. If my max ability to do push-ups is 10, I could do an exercise routine in the morning where I force myself to do 10, and then I'm sore enough that I don't do any more for the rest of the day. I try to do 10 more the next day. I feel sore, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm sensitive to that. Hello. Am I? That's interesting. Comments that it doesn't have any viewers on here. So I've been working on my exercise routine, and I've been rather impressed with how quickly I'm adapting to a higher level of physical activity. But I've also been adjusting my diet to the new dietary settings that I've been working on for the new project. Yep, it looks like that. I'm well, I'm alive. I'm still working on trying to work out some of the recipes that I'm working on. Uh, I worked on the meringue cookies, or the pumpkin spice meringues, earlier this week, and the almond macaroons was the first one I did. And I'm playing around with some potential ways to do a fruit and spice cake. And I want to do a lemon ginger Italian ice, and it's been hot enough to do that lately, so I feel like that would be much appreciated at some of the gatherings that I'm going to tomorrow or the next day. But yeah, working on recipes, working on fitness routines, working on a regular diet, just sort of feeling it out. Yeah, the I'm looking to see if I can get a sense for publishing the recipes that I end up doing. Like the first batch of recipes I did a couple months ago were sauces, condiments, and marinades and dressings for salads. And I've got about 20 to 21 of those that I can publish in a small ebook. This batch sort of is all desserts, so I was thinking of calling it just desserts, uh, and making a little ebook of 20 to 21 recipes for dessert recipes. And I may publish some version of some of them over on a blog, but I'll probably compile them down into a ebook for Kindle, or maybe even a print version through some publishers or something. Still trying to figure that part out. But if people have certain recipes that they're curious about, or have certain flavors they want to see what somebody can do with, I could see what people do with that kind of stuff. I do enjoy brainstorming new ways of using a recipe. I was chit-chatting with somebody the other day about a couple of culinary experiments that I was playing around with. And like one of the things I would do with the meringues, if I really wanted to dabble with the meringues a little bit more, was I would flavor them with something like a little bit of orange, like an orange meringue, and then do a light chocolate dip on them. And so you'd get like a crispy, crumbly meringue with an orange taste, but with a light crust of chocolate on the exterior. And I'd like to do them as sticks, almost like a pretzel stick, and make it easier for you to snap pieces off. Because a meringue is very crumbly if you eat it as a whole. But making sticks out of them, I think, would be a more, maybe that's not a good thing. A snackable version of those would be potentially like, yeah, you could eat way more than you need to be eaten in one sitting if you did that. So I may rethink that. I don't need to be eating a whole bunch of meringues like that. Talking about recently talking with a family member. We used to do for birthdays. Everybody has their favorite birthday dessert, and when I was real little, it used to be grasshopper pie. I used to love well, actually, the first one used to be a Black Forest cake. Then it was a grasshopper pie. But a few years back, before I ended up not being able to eat some of these things due to chronic health concerns, I sort of fell in love with a chocolate mousse cake. And there are a couple ways to make them. You can do like a Oreo cookie crust, or you could do a brownie crust. I would almost say that I favor the brownie crust, but I admit the cookie crust had some good things about it. No, I dabble in a lot of things. I did 2 months ago. I did the condiments, sauces, and dressings and marinades, and they were from scratch. So I made ketchup. I made honey mustard. I really just like figuring out a base to which I can make modifications. So, like one of the recipes that I've been playing with for years since I was in high school was a banana bread recipe that I found, and I remember looking at this recipe and going like, okay, I get the bananas, I get the flour, I don't want to put any nuts in it, and uh, there's a fair amount of sugar in here, but that's, doable. But I looked at the recipe and there was just so much butter. It had so much butter in it. And I'm like, no, I think if I half the recipe, we might have enough butter in the cupboard for it. But it also seemed like a super amount of butter. And so I said, what happens if I swap something else in for the butter? I do know about Reddit. I've not yet mastered the use of Reddit. I have thought about playing on Reddit. Um, it's it just always seemed like I hadn't found my way through it yet. I have an account over there, I think somewhere. Food, desserts. I might think about that. I mean, what I'm doing here on this channel is I do some edited video during the daytime hours. I'm a little late on today's, where I review books, movies, games, and stuff like that, and then later I go through and create creative prompts for writing new short stories or creating new videos or board games or stuff like that. So it's sort of an attempt to get other creative people, and I do think that there are plenty of forums over on Reddit that I could participate in. Board game designers, movie buffs, book clubs, those types of things, art groups. It's such a big site, Reddit, that it's hard for me to learn the pathways through it to find the places I should be to interact with other people with the same interests and point them to some of the things and invite them to participate, because that's what I want to do more than anything. Is I want to participate with people in creating new and interesting ideas. And so what I've been doing since New Year's for these live videos, this is where I started doing the live videos, was every week for each of the categories of stuff that I do, I create something new. So this week was creating some new recipes. Last week was, oh, what was last week? I think last week was product design. And then the week before that was art. Yeah. And board game designs. And so each week I create a new project that I design up and come up with the design and idea for on live video. I'm having a little trouble with my camera behaving itself. Every time I try to show it, like, it's part of the reason why some of the cooking recipes, I'm not going to be showing myself doing them live anymore, because too much moving around and too much action and sometimes too bright an object in front of the camera causes it to lose signal. And so it cuts the video off. And I've had a few too many episodes where I've been working on a project and I moved too fast in front of the camera, or I showed it a white page or a lit screen, and I thought I was still recording and I lost 15 to 30 minutes of content that never got recorded. So I'm not going to do much more of that, but I will continue to talk about the design aspects of these, and I will continue to do the edited video updates of the reviews and the prompts for other people to create stuff. And I want people to make things with some of these ideas or their own ideas, or tell me, no, I think that's wrong. The way I want to do it is do this. Go create it, come back, share it with me so we can share it with anybody else who watches these videos, and share your ideas far and wide. Because for me, that's always been the fun. It's not in the, I do this. It's in what can we do? What creative things can we support each other in doing? And so I do think, I do think there is potential in Reddit. I have to learn to do my social media better too. I do have my Twitter, I do have my Tumblr, I do have my Facebook, but I don't update them. I don't have the knack for it yet. It feels a little bit too much like, hey, look at me. And I want it to be a little bit more like, what are we all doing today? And so I'm a little uncomfortable with doing that part of it myself. I want to see when I go to VidCon in the next week or so. I want to see if I can get together with some other creative people and see if I can get a group of us, at least for a little while, even if they don't want to commit to it long term. Like, okay, let's do a couple creative projects and collaborate and cross videos about what we're all working on and support each other. And I want to see if I can get a little bit of that going, because that, I think, would be my dream, is getting a network of people who come and go, come up with their own creative projects, support and answer questions from each other about how to go further with their projects, and create and share all their creative processes and projects. That's my hope and dream. But it's been a stressful week so far. I've got a few irons in the fire right now. Some of the projects that I'm doing for towards the end of July here are fitness and diet stuff. Yeah. And so I've been starting a new fitness routine. I've started a new dietary routine just to compare them because I've been planning, like, I do really great at some of these big long-term plans, and they're these big crazy projects. And one of them is comparing what a carbohydrate focused diet versus a high protein diet versus a keto style diet, how they compare for the same calorie consumption and how my energy levels and digestive health and functioning are. And that involves doing each for about 4 weeks and then giving a little rest in between so that you don't get cross contamination between the performance and function of each of them. And so I've got my food planned out for the next 6 months, and I've got my exercise routines figured out for the next 6 months. And I'm just sort of starting in on some of these. And you do them every day, and it's going to end up being 1 to 7 videos of content for a month of work. So it's a little bit of a different experiment, but I admit I'm having a little bit of fun with it. And that's half of why I'm here, is to have fun doing these weird projects that I had come up with. But thanks for joining me. It was nice to meet you. Hope to see you again sometime in the future. I think I'm due to actually do a second video tonight for the Peter Pan book that I just reviewed. This one's going to be the creative prompts for it. So I know I need to go record and edit that and see if I can get it up tonight. But thanks for joining me, and take care of yourself and have a good night. Yeah, I gotta head out of here and get to work. It's 11:30 here. A little late.